let's just talk about inventory domain in general. So traditionally, when we look back 20 years, inventory management got lumped in within distributed order management as a module. But over the last decade or so, retailers have started looking at inventory management as a separate service, broken off of order management. Now, is inventory management a single service or it's a group of services? That's really the question here. We think of inventory management as something that is composed of multiple different services. At the heart of it, there is supply and demand. There is the supply, which tracks what's your inventory on hand, what's your inventory in transit, what's your inventory on order, all of that. And then demand is what's reserved against the supply. Now, there could be supply service, a demand service, and an aggregation service that all supports the supply and demand service. Next to it is the availability. Once you have a supply and demand picture, how do you now compute available to sell or available to promise? Out of that, matching supply and demand, computing safety stock. Now, safety stock is a great area where you can plug in AI/ML models to predict how much do you need to keep in reserve for your walk-in customers at a store. Predictive inventory, if you don't have a good picture of what's in shelf, could we use ML models to predict what is in stock, what is out of stock or limited stock? Using all that and even looking at things like availability rules such as segmentation, what can different channels see in your inventory, what's reserved for B2B, what's reserved for B2C, all that becomes part of the availability service in our view. And then there is the third element of it is the audit service. Anyone who spent time with inventory management know that one of the most time-consuming thing is to figure out what my inventory picture was at the point of time. Why did something was not available for an order to allocate against, or why the two systems are out of sync at any point of time. So investing in a comprehensive audit service, which allows you to trace inventory movements as well as reconcile systems together, is a valuable investment. Now, augment that with explainability through Gen AI, and that makes the analyst's life even easier after that. Once you solve these three things, and I think inventory control center or a control tower is the next frontier, which is now with a sense of what's in supply, what's your demand. Now you can start predicting what is likely to be out of stock, what's going to be overstock. You can trigger replenishments. You can even suggest stock rebalancing. So we think of inventory in this view, and depending on the type of vertical you are in, you may have more or less components to think about from a composable inventory management side. Jordan, I think the second question you were asking is how do you think about enterprises having to migrate from legacy systems? How does a tech migration? So I would say when you think about tech migration, you and if inventory management is one of the things that you want to move into a modern stack, think about first. I think you should think about creating a single source of truth, right? How do you aggregate all your inventory across your network, across your vendors, marketplaces, all into a single source of truth? Next, invest in availability. How do you promise and how do you make the promise available to the website? And I would then look at how do you put in a comprehensive audit service. I would like to hear, Justin, any thoughts you want to add here?
Yeah, I mean, just specific to the idea around migration, right? Moving from a legacy to a composable mock-based type architecture is not an easy task. It's a roadmap, it's an evolution, it's a migration that needs to happen. And some of the, as we talk with retailers as well as we think about their evolution of how they can get into architecture, it's really about kind of starting to slowly decouple, right? Start to break away some of those key aspects. What could feed into the legacy monolithic type system to start, and then start to slowly strip away and bring in kind of into that orchestration layer, those key components, and then move on to the next ones and move on to the next ones to get then towards that single source of truth. But as you talked about, just the philosophy of composability and leveraging, the API gateways and the orchestration layers and even abstraction layers if you need to really create that extensibility and break down those silos across your disparate data systems to give you that singular view and that singular overarching platform to support it.
Absolutely right. And I wanted to give another example of composability. When we think of composability, it's not just about breaking things down, but we recently ran into a requirement, a unique requirement at a discount retailer who wanted to look at inventory at three levels, at the UPC level, at the store, but at a SKU level, at a higher level, and the logistics team wanted to see it at a logistics SKU level. Now, with a monolithic inventory system, it would have been really hard to create those three different views. It requires a lot of customization. But with a composable inventory service, we could stand up, say, three versions of the same service, each of them providing visibility at three different levels for the three different users of that information. Just like in to take an analogy of object-oriented programming, define a class and create three instances of it doing three different things, something similar to that. So I thought that was a unique example of what we were able to do.